just going to run through an update of the project. I'm just going to quickly go through what lots of you have seen already, and then Andre will go over the budget and the schedule. So the 4 pillars of this project is sustainability, academics, safety, and wellness. The biggest thing is to provide a 21st century school environment and make sure that the academics are ready for the future, or future-proofed, if you will. Wellness was a big topic of discussion in community meetings and with educators, and which made it one of the pillars. Same thing with sustainability. So there's been lots of discussion about not only having a building or a school that is sustainable over the next several decades, but reduces operational costs, carbon footprint, energy use, and there's been a lot of talk in the community as we've met over the past year about LEED certification. So as you've seen before, this is the site plan. The site itself breaks the traffic up into 2 areas, parent drop-off, which you see here, and then bus drop-off here, provides for a field and also provides for parking, more parking than you have now. And then the back of the building will be play fields, gardens, educational space. What we're trying to do is make best use of the site. The safety aspects of it, we're building a vertical building, so one of the benefits to that are all of the core learning spaces are on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th level, and all of the public spaces are on the main level. So students, aside from lunch and music and phys ed, library, will be in their core classrooms on the upper levels throughout the day. Safer place. The plans themselves were a work in, that was essentially comes out of the community meetings and the educator meetings and the meetings we had with the students. All of the red that you see up front is administration and counseling spaces. All of that has eyes on the front door, and all of that has eyes on the site. So it was very important that all of the adults are basically at the front door and seeing the entire site. We then have the blue here, which is athletics, which is the gym, and PE. We have a recital hall for the music program, common area in between. The chorus and the band flank the spaces of the recital hall, and then the library is right on access with the main door, and food service serves students in the dining hall, which acts as a learning commons, except for 2 lunch periods during the day. On the 2nd floor, we have world languages and health and music, the chorus room actually, with the balcony to the recital hall. We also have art and STEM on that 2nd level. When we go to the 3rd and 4th floor, they're identical, and the 4 colors represent 4 team pods, if you will. Each team has its own stair. That allows the students from each team to go up and down and get to their specials without interrupting the other teams throughout the day. And the core in the center is, again, special places for the students. There's small meeting rooms, special education resource rooms, faculty space. The 4th floor is identical. You'll also notice that the shape of the building is a square because, again, with sustainability involved, what we're trying to do is create the most sustainable shape, if you will. Minimize the exterior wall envelope. We still are looking at sketches throughout the building of what the interior feel of the building will be. So these are some interior shots, this being the main lobby, this being that common area out in the middle between recital and phys ed gym. We have the recital hall itself, and we have the gymnasium. The exterior of the building, again, it's all designed around a couple of things. One is sustainability, so the windows and the treatments of the windows are doing 2 things. 25% of the exterior wall envelope is window, and that is to maximize 75% of well-insulated exterior wall. The windows are also positioned within the learning spaces to harvest as much daylight as we can. We do have a bay over the front door to sort of welcome people into the school, to let people know where that front door is. And you can see here from this image that we have administration and counseling on both sides of that front door. So that started to really shape how the building looked, how the building worked. And the blue that you see in the Oyster River, obviously it has a lot to do with the tradition of the school, and it has to do with making it more playful for the middle school students. From Co-Drive, again, it's a function of this wall here being the wall of the recital hall, sort of picking up on some musical notes, and then again, strategically placing windows so that we are maximizing daylight and also maximizing energy efficiency. So if there's no questions on that, I'll turn this over.
Ron, can you just go back to your new slide related to sustainability and walk through that a little bit more slowly?
Sure.
Because it's the first time the community will have been exposed to it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
one of the things that we've done in terms of the building systems themselves is to enhance the exterior envelope. So within this project, what we're looking at is insulation values on the outside of this building that exceed code. And what they're providing is to drive down the energy use in the building. So we have aspects such as triple pane windows, an R60 roof instead of an R25 or an R30. We have R34 walls instead of R20. We have R20 under the slab instead of R10. And so what that enables us to do is energy modeling to predict the performance of the energy in the building. We have other energy efficient systems. Those include geothermal and a natural gas hybrid, natural gas for the solar hot water, and also natural gas to pick up the coldest days of the year, if you will. The benefit of the geothermal is you get air conditioning throughout the building just by running some pumps, so we don't need electric cooling. And then there's the energy efficiency when it comes to lighting. We've got solar hot water, we've got daylighting throughout the building, and all of the fixtures inside and out will be LED. So the results of that is the building that we've designed, based again on a lot of feedback from the educators about movement throughout the building, is we're 23% more spatially efficient than the existing school. So what that means is we have less corridor, less stair, even though we have the 4 stairs. We have less ramps, stairs, corridors throughout the building, 23% less than the existing building has now. We also have 34% more space. So we have to remember that we came up with the square footage of the building primarily based upon the fact that many of your classrooms did not meet state standards. So that's where we started. We started with enlarging the educational spaces to meet state standards. We then took a look at the music programs in the recital hall, the feedback we got from the community about the gym, if you will, the basketball court size. And with all of that, because we are focusing on this sustainability piece, even without the solar panels. So we've talked about photovoltaics on a roof as part of a power purchase agreement. Even without them, we're 66% better energy or more energy efficient than the existing school, which means you'll be paying 27% less cost per square foot throughout the building. Now, the last thing you'll see on the left-hand side of the slide is LEED certification. There's been a lot of talk throughout the community as we've gone through this over the past year about really having something that certifies the building as green. You know, it's one thing for an architect or a contractor or an engineer to stand here and say, yes, it's a green building, and it's another thing to have a third party certify that building as a sustainable building. So what we tried to do is give everyone that amount of information on this slide.
What's changed since the last time you were here?
What's changed?
What's changed? Yeah, what has changed since the last time you presented to the school board?
Good question. Not a lot. I mean, what we've been doing is going through and finalizing some of the interiors, if you will, some of the exteriors when it comes to the site. We've had a couple of site meetings which have sort of moved the building 15 feet to the left, if you will, or to the right. as we start to go through the final logistics plans of how it's going to work. We've also taken a look at how traffic works much better, because that's also been a big topic of discussion here at the board meetings. But the building itself, it hasn't gotten any bigger or smaller, and we haven't added or taken away any windows or anything like that. Yep.
And so you've mentioned to us all and throughout the process the kind of the environmental advantages of this school and kind of the, in quote, greenness of it. And the solar panels, though, are not in the current, what we will soon hear, the total number.
Correct.
Could you remind me what the cost of those solar panels are?
Sure. So what this district's been looking at is a power purchase agreement with Revision Energy. And so we haven't heard back from Revision Energy except for they're looking at about 250 kilowatt system. And so without getting into the numbers, I just happen to know based on a very recent project that just bid, that can run somewhere in the $400,000 to $500,000 range. Revision Energy is still working on that though, and it's sort of a moving target right now. What they're looking at is the amount of square footage we have on the roof to determine how many solar panels they can fit on the roof, and then how many might be over a parking lot. So that's the big question in all of this. But if you get a 300 kilowatt system, you're looking at upwards of over $500,000.
Thank you.
And it would work the same way the town did with the solar array out in Lee, Ken, where the savings from the usage offsets the cost of the solar panels.
So, and maybe we'll have the discussion. The only reason I asked, I think it's just a consideration. Do we try to roll it into the bond and have a done deal, or is it something that we hold out for the future? And
So why don't we have a discussion specifically with Revision? Part of the way that Revision works is they get outside investors who get tax advantages, which is why municipalities and school systems use them. And the offset is the greater efficiency pays for the solar panels. So why don't we have them come in with Ron and do a presentation specifically around that issue, and then I know Michael has been interested in that in the past as well. Have that be the focus of one of the presentations.
great, thank you.
Yeah.
For the figures on this slide,
Yep.
the 34% more square feet, is that gross square feet? You're looking at total
It is.
building size? And then how does what does 66% more energy efficient mean?
So what that means, I don't know what. So the 66% more energy efficient, right now you use a certain amount of kilowatt hours, which we've documented. Susan has provided us with exactly what you spent 2018, as well as natural gas therms, if you will, or cubic feet of gas. That's how it's measured. And so we're able to look at exactly how much energy that used per square foot for the entire year. So with the energy modeling that our energy engineers have been doing, they're able to take our building and predict with the insulation, with the systems that we're using. For instance, LED lighting takes a lot less energy to use than the T8s and the T5s that you have in your existing school. And so they're able to predict that we're going to use so many kilowatt hours and so many therms for your natural gas throughout an entire year in this building. And so what that gives you, it's called an energy use intensity, an EUI. And you translate the BTUs into BTUs per square foot per year, and you translate the kilowatt hours into BTUs, and that gives you so many BTUs per square foot per year. So your building right now is operating at a 50, roughly I think it's 50 or 50.2 EUI. So that's 50 BTUs per square foot per year, and we're predicting just over 17 for the new building.
Wow.
And so And that's a whole measure of things. It's the way that the building is shaped, it's the way that the building's oriented on site, it's the amount of daylighting that we're harvesting, but it's also the amount of insulation we have on the building. So that's why way back when we were talking about these strategies that the New Building Institute has and other green organizations, where we said we want to keep the window to wall ratio to 25%, that's really where this happens, you know?
So in that calculation, kilowatt hour of electricity and a kilowatt hour of natural gas are treated the same way? In the
Right, so they are. So the conversion of kilowatts to BTUs, I think, is 3.14.
Okay, yeah.
And so, or 3.41.
Do you have a sense of how the mix of electricity versus gas will change from current to?
Yes, you're going to be using a lot more electricity and a lot less gas. So the other thing that you're doing just by default in having these types of systems is you're using a lot less carbon. So your carbon footprint is going to be much, much lower. And so we also, solar hot water is part of this project and is in the GMP. And so essentially the energy engineer has told us that, you know, during the fall and the spring and so forth, you know, you're going to be generating 50% of your hot water load with the solar hot water. So in effect, you're saving 50% of your gas loads in the fall and in the spring to get the hot water to the temperatures you need to do the dishes and so forth in the dining hall. So I think our PowerPoint is stuck. Oh, yeah.
Any additional questions for Ron?
Just, and really maybe not even pertaining to this project, but I was just trying to scientifically understand where you mentioned our use of electricity increases, natural gas goes down, our carbon footprint goes down. Is that because electricity is generating less CO2 emissions than if we were using natural gas? Or is it because we're not using natural gas on site and we're not counting the CO2 generated from an electric generating power plant?
Oh, so that's a great question. So there's a difference between site energy and source energy, right? So site energy is actually what are we creating in terms of carbon footprint at the site. So when we're burning fossil fuels, we're creating a lot more carbon at the site, not the source, but the site. Same thing with electricity. You know, how much carbon are you creating through use of that electricity at the site? Well, that's actually zero, right? So then if you look at the source, the nice thing about New Hampshire and northern New England actually is a lot of the electricity is actually created through renewable energy systems, nuclear and hydroelectric. So what that means is even the generation of that electricity doesn't create as much carbon as obviously the fracking that goes on to get the natural gas or importing, you know, the natural gas from other states. And so now having said that, there are still, you know, CO2 causing power plants in the Northeast. The hope, and this is like when it comes to future-proofing a project or a school, the hope is that in the future, much less fossil fuels will be used, much more renewable energy, such as solar panels, will be used. And so that's something that you're sort of geared towards the future and setting that up to even drive that carbon footprint down further.
Great, thank you. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Should we proceed?
Switch over to Andrew.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do
So Andre,
that.
would you like to take the podium and talk about the guaranteed price that you have come to?
This is why I like paper.
It's good to have a backup.
Okay, we're almost. Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Not working.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
I can do this.
Yeah.
So good evening, audience, and school board members. Excuse me.
There we
So,
go.
over the past 6 weeks, Bound Corporation and about 95 other suppliers and subcontractors have been working very, very diligently and a lot of long hours to come up with a price that we can guarantee for the new school project. So this guaranteed maximum price that we're going to present this evening, it comes from plans which are in what's called the design development phase. So that means that a lot of details are present, but some still have to be worked out. And so when you try to estimate from a set of plans like that, it generates many, many, many more questions from the people trying to price it. So both our architects and their engineering consultants have done a marvelous job over the past 6 weeks answering a lot of questions, so that everyone was able to give us a very confident number at the end of the process. As I said, we had 95 participants in the pricing exercise. The other thing I want to note is that the construction industry continues to be very busy, and competition for the larger, highly capable subcontractors that we need for this project is at a premium. So we have recommended that certain of the key subs be brought on board as early as next month. And since we can't make a firm commitment to any of the subcontractors until after the bond vote, this would be done at no obligation to the SAU. But what we found is that by bringing some of the important subs, such as a site work contractor, the concrete guys, the electrical, the mechanical, the sprinkler, the ones that take a lot of coordination, by getting them on board early, it allows them to work with the engineering consultants and the architect to give you, or give them rather, a lot of input, and it makes sure that they keep the budget numbers right on line and can keep us in good shape financially. So we're very pleased to report that, you know, we've after probably 1,200 hours of estimating time between all of us, we can provide a GMP of construction part of the project of $45,101,921. And then if you add soft costs, which includes things like architectural engineering fees, FF&E costs, which is your furniture, fixtures, equipment, and various other fees that are estimated at about $4,740,811. The total project GMP for the March bond vote would be $49,842,732. And I think you all have a copy of our summary GMP estimate to take a look at. The other thing we wanted to talk about, or I guess before I go into that, are there questions on what we've presented so far?
I don't have a question, but I might as well, this is Tom Newkirk was unable to be here because he's at a conference, and he did ask that I read this statement. So he says he wishes to express his deep appreciation for the tireless work of the architects, construction manager, and the middle school committee that has worked together to get us to this point. It was truly a reiterative process with the architects proposing, listening, modifying, always in full collaboration with Andre, who had to translate plans into costs. The big question all along was, could we build the school we envisioned for the costs that we set out? On Friday, we learned that the answer was yes. My hope is that we can use the guaranteed maximum price as the bonding figure and work to persuade voters that we will be getting a wonderful school at cost we can manage, and that to delay will only raise costs. I am absolutely convinced that future generations of teachers, students, parents, and townspeople will look back gratefully to the work being done to make this school a reality. So, thank you. Yes.
So as the process moves forward, if we have an affirmative vote in March, architects will finalize the plans. And that's a process that what we want to concentrate on, of course, is site work. Site work would begin May 11th. And we've been working with the staff at the middle school to prepare them for what construction activities will mean to them. I think we have a good logistics plan in formation so far. And while we plan way before May 11th to have the site permit in place so that we can get started on May 11th. And what is really important is the site project is a huge project, and it's not really something that smaller site work contractors are able to do. So we're very fortunate to have had some of the larger companies in the state prices for us. Bidding was very competitive. So we have someone that we can bring on board whenever the decision is made. They're a very large company that have the horsepower to do the amount of work that has to be done. The overall construction schedule, as you probably have heard in the past, is for us to get the school up and have the staff and students move in during February vacation 2022. That's an ambitious schedule, but one that I think if everything is done the way we've talked about is doable. And once we move the students into the new building, we will immediately take down the old one. And by the time summer rolls around, we'll be working on the new turf field and the remainder of the parking and access road. So, there's a lot of other steps that go along the way. We still will have a round of bidding for especially interior subcontractors and various components of the project once the plans are fully completed. But what we think is real important is that steel, we have a good steel supplier on board, that concrete companies are very, very hard to come by, especially ones large enough to do this. So we've had very good competitive pricing from companies. We have someone ready to go on that. So what that allows us to do is know that if the project gets approved, that we have really good companies ready to step in and start the work. And in the meantime, they'll be giving us the input that we need as far as developing the right length schedule to complete their various tasks. More questions?
Several red lines that have other GMPs in the different slides that Ron flipped through while you were speaking. What are the other GMPs that other GMP milestones?
That's a little bit of a misnomer. The GMP is the GMP.
Okay.
So the plan is that as we go through the project, if we get better bids, they just get rolled into the contingency. So the contingency is one of those things that I have to control that until we get to certain points of the project.
Should go back to that slide, Andre.
The unfortunate part of the schedule is that the school that we have to demolish has some unknowns in it. So we have to save some of the contingency. We've gotten 2 very close bids taking it down, but there are a couple of unknowns that, we have to save some contingency for those type of things. But the contingency, parts of it will start to get released as the project moves forward. And it's to the discretion of the school district how they, spend that money.
So the contingency in the project within the guaranteed maximum price is $1,789,375. And that's because, Andre right now is locked and loaded with these subs. But between now and the March vote, things could vary from where he is right now. That gives him the confidence to say tonight that $49,842,732 is the price. So that it won't go beyond that. We can guarantee that to the voters. And when we start talking about this tonight and tomorrow and in all the other meetings I go to, I'll switch over to this number because it's locked and loaded.
And another question, just curiosity. In Division 6, wood and plastics, there's a line that reads casework, no trash stations, owner, furnishings, and a question mark. And I
Right.
just didn't have any idea what that meant.
So there are recycling stations in each of the pods on the 3rd and 4th floors. And that's something that will come out of the furnishings budget that is in that $4,900,000 number that I mentioned. So it just was excluded by the casework suppliers because there were no details on that at this point. And it's something that you typically just buy off the shelf.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Where does the demolition show up in here?
Under site work, first line.
Is it-
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
building demolition, yep. Well, thank you very much.
Well, I tell you, it's been a pleasure to work with the building committee. A lot of really good input every meeting. And, we have our fingers crossed. It's potentially a wonderful building for the district, and hopefully it'll get good support. We'd love to build it for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre.
Thank you.